Okay, this is now tarot lesson number 44, and I don't know about this one. I have doubts only because I don't want to confuse you, and I might. So I'm going to come back to this in different ways later, and not just in this lesson, but in subsequent lessons. So it might be confusing because I'm going to talk about numbers and planets, and this is because a number of people have asked for something along these lines, and people are using numbers anyway, so you might as well know the right way to go about it. That's not arrogance on my part, although it kind of is, but it's also because I had a good teacher, and so I'm going to tell you what the beginning point of what I was told, and let you explore and figure things out in your own way, in your own time. But I will come back to it, and I'll give you some suggestions on how you can make use of the planets that go with the numbers. But I'd like to begin with a question, and the question is, what's the best car in the world? And you know there is no answer to that question, partly because it depends on who you are and what you want. So if you're at home and you're going to drive to a grocery store to pick up groceries, you don't want a Ferrari, unless you particularly want to impress people. But a Ferrari is not the kind of vehicle you use to go for groceries. Whereas a Honda might work or something like that. So there isn't just one car that fits everything. And in the same way, I'm going to be talking about numbers, but think of it as adding to your understanding of everything, rather than being the thing that you're going to build everything on top of. So the numbers that I'm going to give you, and the planets that go with them, and the ideas that I'm going to give you that relate to the planets and therefore the numbers, will make you, it's like more another arrow in your quiver, or another tool in your toolbox, rather than get carried away with numbers, because it's easy to do. But rather than get carried away with numbers, look at them in the way that they're presented, that it's an idea, it's something you can work with. Because I'm going to talk about, one is the sun, right? One is the sun, and that's the symbol for the sun. It's a circle with a dot in the middle. And the sun in a horoscope represents, people will tell you, this is one of the reasons I don't want to do this, is because if you look on the internet or look in modern books for the rulership of planets, so much of it is just rubbish. It sounds good maybe, but it really isn't correct. And so I'm going to give you some basic ideas and ask you to think about them or play with them or seek to understand them better. Because I'm saying one is the sun, and the sun is, if you look at the symbol, you've got a dot in the middle, which is maybe the earth, and around it you've got the zodiac. Is one way of looking at that circle with a dot in the middle. But the sun in a horoscope represents, it's not the ego, because people don't know what the ego is, and ego is too specialized a word. I'll tell you what I was taught. The sun is the God creative force. So there are gods, there are invisible powers in some way, and they are creative in their own way, and it's force, it's energy, and its expression. And so that's what the sun represents. So if it's a bit like, one way of thinking of it is that it shows the team that you're on, right? Because in the sporting world, different teams operate in different ways. They've got their own style of play. And in the same way, a Taurian is a Taurian. And a Taurian is not the same as a Leo. They're just not built the same way. And I said to somebody a few days ago that the thing about astrology shows how you're built and how you're meant to live. It's not about identifying where you're broken and suggesting how to fix it, because you're not broken. Nobody is broken. But I'll come back to that. So one is the sun, and the sun is a God creative force, and it's creative, but it's not personally creative. It's more like the team. And a little while ago I gave you Taurus, let's say, is the farmer, and Leo's the king. And so you won't go wrong if you think about Taurians and farming. But you will go wrong if you read about what Taurians are supposed to be like. There was a thing I came across. I tried to find the quote and couldn't find it before I did this, but somebody talked about how Geminis are idea factories and they're blah, blah, blah. The thing is, they're not. Maybe the odd one is kind of like that, but you can't say that all Geminis are idea factories, whereas all Geminis are teenagers. They get different types of teenagers, but they're all teenagers. So this is my reluctance. The thing is, as well, number one's a magician. So in some way that we're probably not going to get into today, the magician is the power of the sun, or has the power of the sun, or understands solar energy, or understands creative power that creates worlds. Right, because it's the God creative force. It's some kind of, I'm not trying to be religious, but it's some kind of, there's something about the number one, because one can also represent unity, as I mentioned in an earlier video. So with the magician, maybe when the magician comes up, in the back of your mind, you're wondering to what extent is the magician creative, or is able to draw on invisible power to make something happen. Remembering too that too much sun can burn, right? So the magician upside down can be dangerous because you don't know what you're doing, or you're biting off more than you can chew. There's a story about Phaeton, who was the son of the sun god, and I can't remember, the Apollo, or whatever the sun god was, who would drive his chariot across the heavens each day, and his son wanted to impress his friends and asked to drive the chariot of the sun, and the father eventually relented and gave in and said, okay, you can do it. And the horses recognized that it wasn't their usual master controller, and so the sun got too close to the earth and burned up, all sorts of things. So all sorts of problems happen because the sun, too much sun can burn. So think about one as the sun. And there's a book called The Rulership Book by Rex Bills, Bills, and he talks about rulerships. So maybe what you do is you take a look at about rulerships and see what the sun rules, and maybe begin to make lists of information about the sun. But so that's one is the sun. Two is the moon, and that's the moon there. Okay, so the moon hasn't, okay, we've got the sun and the moon together, 1 and 2. The moon has no light of her own. The moon shines by reflected light, and the moon represents fluctuation. It moves quickly, but it changes. It's not constant. There's a poem about the inconstant moon. So when you're dealing with the number 2, it's not a constant energy. It's not a constant, don't like to use the word energy, but it's not a constant influence. It goes through its phases quite quickly. So with the high priestess, for instance, number 2, with the high priestess, because the high priestess represents or because the number 2 relates to or is ruled by the moon, maybe with the high priestess, in the back of your mind you find you're wondering who is the strong force around the high priestess. What is the high priestess reflecting? So somebody talks about maybe they want to know, are they going to get a promotion? And so the high priestess comes up. Think about who the power is in the room. Let's say you've got 3 people in the room interviewing you. One of them is going to be in charge. So it can be important to identify the person who's in charge, because that person is going to make the decisions. So 2 is the fluctuation, and it's the moon. 3. Oh. 3 is Jupiter. And Jupiter looks like that. It's a bit like 1 and 2. And you get 3 as it happens. So 3 is Jupiter, and Jupiter represents expansion and doing things in a big way. And so if you want a key word for the sun, it's the God creative force. The moon is fluctuation. Jupiter is expansion. So with the Empress, number 3, she represents expansion. And that's maybe why we've got lots of fertility around her, and fertile fields and plants growing and trees and the rest of it. So 3 is the number of expansion. 4 is Uranus. It's the chief sky god before, from the ancient past. So have a look at some mythology. Use the internet or get a book on mythology and read about the gods and what they did and how they lived and what the relationships were between them. So Uranus was the chief sky god, and he was overthrown by his son Saturn. And Saturn didn't want the same thing to happen to him, so he ate his children, except for one of his children was called Jupiter. And Jupiter was taken off by the mother, and he was raised elsewhere, and he came back and he overthrew his father. So, and two of Saturn's children were Neptune and Pluto. Right, so Neptune and Pluto spent time within Saturn's boundaries, but Jupiter didn't. And so this can be why, or one of the explanations for why Jupiter doesn't know restrictions and doesn't know when to stop. And that can be the problem for Jupiter. It's not just expansion, it's overexpansion. It's not just indulgence, it's overindulgence. And Jupiter can tend to go too far. So with the Empress, or the Empress reversed, you're doing too much, or you're too far out in one direction or the other. I hope this is not confused. It's not supposed to be. And the thing is, as you study more in these areas, it becomes less confusing, because you begin to understand what's actually going on. But the first time you're introduced to it, you can think you know what you're doing, but you really don't. Or you take it the wrong way, or you misunderstand it in some way. So with 4, it's Uranus. And Uranus is sudden change and upset and inventiveness. So we happen to have the Emperor. So to what extent is the Emperor, number 4, inventive and creative in that way? The other thing is, though, that I'm sort of throwing a lot of information at you at the same time here, but Uranus was discovered in 1762 or something, 1761. So before Uranus was discovered, there was the number 4. So in the beginning, the 1 was the positive sun, and 2 was the moon, and 3 was Jupiter, and 4 was the negative sun. So before Uranus, there was the negative sun. So 1 says, let us create. 4 says, let us destroy. Not because we want to cause problems, but let us destroy so that new growth can take place. So the Emperor, I don't know, do what you want with this. 5 is Mercury. Have I got room here? Mercury is this, a circle, a semicircle, and a cross. And Mercury is the number 5. So it's, I think we looked at this a little while ago with the cross of matter, the circle of spirit, and the semicircle of soul. And Mercury is 5. So the Hierophant in some way, Mercury is a messenger of the gods. It's the quick mind. It represents communication of all sorts. So with the Hierophant, you're dealing in some way with communication. So with the Hierophant reversed, make sure that people understand what you're talking about, or that you understand what somebody else is talking about, because there's likely to be communication difficulties or problems or misunderstandings when the Hierophant is reversed. Because here you've got somebody who presumably knows what he's talking about, and the people down here listening. And ideally, what he says is clear and the people understand it correctly. If it's upside down, maybe these people are interrupting, right? So this person knows what he's talking about, but these people keep asking questions and distracting him, or getting him off track, or misunderstanding what he's talking about and running with it. 6 is Venus, and Venus is like that, right? And Venus represents beauty and love. Venus is a goddess of love, so she represents, the number 6 represents love and beauty and harmony and balance. The lovers, as it happens, number 6. So, but the number 6 is beauty and balance and harmony. So beauty can be make things attractive, and the lovers upside down can maybe the idea is that what you're proposing isn't that attractive, that people are not going to respond, are not going to want to do whatever it is that you want them to do. So instead of there being balance and harmony, you've got disharmony, and somebody or the whole situation is out of balance, it's out of harmony with itself. 7 is Neptune. And Neptune looks like that. You've got the cross of matter and you've got the semicircle here. So 7 is Neptune, and Neptune is confusion and illusion and deception. And it's self-deception as well. So Neptune is hard to pin down. It's hard to know what it's about. So with the Chariot, this can be why people struggle with the Chariot card, because it's number 7. So what does it mean? What is it telling you? So perhaps with the Chariot card, because it's number 7, you need to look at the spiritual reasons for whatever it is that's going on, because Neptune can represent spiritual understanding, but in a lot of cases it's just confusion. And the other thing is, before Neptune was discovered in 1846, I think, before Neptune was discovered, there was a number 7. And so 2 was the new moon, right? The beginning of the cycle. 7 was the full moon. So at the full moon, the sun and the moon are exactly equal in size as we see them from Earth. So for a moment in the moon's cycle, it reflects completely the sun. So the full moon is an important, serious, powerful time. And that can be why the Chariot is number 7, or that can be the connection between the number 7 and the chariot, that the chariot represents the full moon. It represents a moment when, or a short period when the reflection is equal to the power that is being sent out. 8 is Saturn. And Saturn looks like that. I've done it this way. In the previous one, I did that's Jupiter and that is Saturn. And you can do it that way as well. But in modern books, you've got the cross of Saturn, you've got the semicircle at the bottom here. And Saturn represents discipline and restriction and hard work and patience and safety. So here we've got, I'm giving you the Justice card. So you've got, in some way, discipline, and the sword in the hand can represent discipline, but it's not forcing people to do stuff. It's really self-discipline that's important, I think, with the number 8. And Saturn represents boundaries. And again, read some of the mythology that goes with Saturn. And last but not least is number 9 for Mars. And so in the past, that was Venus, and this was Mars. So in the past, Venus was that, and Mars was passive Mars, the opposite of Venus. But nowadays, Mars looks like this. Active Mars, where you've got the circle, but instead of it, it's a change from this. We've got a circle, but we don't have a semicircle or a cross. We've got this arrow pointing out. And Mars is personal creative energy. The sun is the God creative force. Mars is personal creative energy. So the sun represents how you're born, and Mars represents what you do with the energy you're given at birth. And Mars is the god of war. So the hermit, what's the connection between war and the hermit? So I don't know how long this has taken. But let me show you this. This is an oracle. So what you do is, let's say I've got something in mind that I'm thinking about doing. So what you say to so let's say somebody you can do this for yourself. So what you do is you write down the first 9 numbers that come into your mind. So I've got my question, and I'm doing 2, 3, 1, 6, 7, 4, 1, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are 9 numbers. You can repeat them if you want. Then you put a 3 at the end, right? And 2 and 3 is 5. 1 and 3 is 4. 1 and 6 is 7. 6 and 7 is 13. 1 and 3 is 4. 7 and 4 is 11, is 2. 4 and 1 is 5. 8 and 1 is 9. 9 and 8 is 17, is 8. And 9 and 3 is 12. And then we do 4 and 5 is 9. 4 and 7 is 11. 7 and 4 is 11. 4 and 2 is 6. 2 and 5 is 7. 9 and 5 is 14. 9 and 8 is 17. 8 and 3 is 11. 2, 4, 8, 4. 7 and 5 is 12. 8 and 5 is 13. 8 and 2 is 10. 2 and 4 is 6, 8 and 4 is 12, 8 and 4 is 12, 3 and 4 is 7, 3 and 4 is 7, 1 and 4 is 5, 6 and 3 is 9, I'm just show you this, 6, 7, 3 is 10, 10, 8, 9 and 6 is 15, 6 and 1 is 7, 1 and 1 is 2, 1 and 8 is 9, 6 and 7 is 13, 7 and 2 is 9, 2, 4 and 9 is 13, is a 4, 9 and 2 is 11, is 2, 2 and 4 is 6. The answer is Venus. So if I go ahead with this plan or this project, it's going to work out well, because 6 is Venus, and Venus represents beauty and balance and harmony and artistic expression, whatever it happens to be. If I'd got 8 as the answer, 8 is Saturn, and Saturn's restriction and limitation. So in its own way, the answer is don't do it. or it's going to take a lot more hard work than you might think. Whereas here, because it's Venus, we're expecting, or I would be expecting, social gatherings and interaction with other people and balance and harmony and enjoyment as well, because it's Venus. So you do that, you get 6 numbers, put a 3 at the end. I don't know why, you just do. And then you add up each row until you get a single one. But the other thing is you can go back. When you get good at this, you can get, okay, the answer is Venus. How did we get to Venus? We went 4, Uranus and the moon. So we've got lighthouse destroy and we've got fluctuation. So we've got a 4 and a 2, and you can take some time to think about what happens when you put Uranus together with the moon. What are the strengths and weaknesses that you're dealing with? Ultimately, it becomes Venus, which is balance and beauty, so it's fine. But how did we get there? And how did we get to 4 and 2? We went Uranus, Mars, and the moon. So the step before this was these 3 planets. And so on. So I think that's it for the moment. Don't know what you'll make of that, but there's other applications of that idea, and I'll just show you them a bit later. But if you're interested in numbers, try that method, and maybe look a little bit on the internet for rulerships of planets. But remember, seriously, most astrology on the internet is rubbish. It's just people don't know what they're talking about. I know that's a bit harsh, but it's true. So anyway, I'll leave it for the moment. Thanks for watching. So Tuesday, it's 9 o'clock when I'm uploading this, and at 4 o'clock this afternoon Eastern time, we're doing the live stream with Laurie. So the link will be in the description. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but I forgot. That's the thing, when you're not sure about something, important things tend to drift away from you. Because I began talking about, I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not. And I forgot about the announcement. Anyway, enough of me going on for the moment, so I'll talk to you again in 5 days, which is going to be Sunday. Thanks again for watching. If you have comments, leave them below, and I'll see you again. Okay, bye-bye.